time, over 175 years. What was in circulation at the time was the seeded series. So specifically the half dollar, you're looking at the largest 90% silver to circulate in the 19th century. If you have a seeded half dollar, you're lucky. But if you have a New Orleans mint, you're even luckier. If you don't have one, now's your chance, folks. I'm going to give you all the reasons why you got to have one. Now, New Orleans, as you may or may not know, closed in the beginning of the Civil War. It was in the South. They had to close up the mint, and they didn't reopen until 1879 when they started striking Morgan silver dollars. But they did not strike any smaller denominations. They only struck the Morgan dollar. And that is why the seeded Liberty halves made at the New Orleans mint are very, very special because of the rarity. Now, this series was the only 90% silver to circulate for most of the 19th century. The last one was made in 1861. We have a small hoard on hand, and they're available tonight at $89.95 while they last. So on the reverse, just like the Morgan, you have the O mint mark at the bottom above the abbreviated half dollar, and each one of ours is in gorgeous, hand-selected, circulated collector quality, and we have a few different dates. So if you grab a few, we'll do our best to give you a variety. The first callers might get a couple different dates, but there are not many available, so that's why I say call soon to get the best variety. So we all know the Civil War begins, and this was the pre-Civil War halves. Every date is pre-Civil War. Last made was 1861. And then they closed the mint, and then after that, they don't open it again until the Morgan Dollar series. So if you look back at all of the seeded Liberty halves, 53 years of production comparison to the Kennedy, or actually more at this point. But let's just look at a comparison of the first Kennedy, 1964. 273.3 million P's made, over 156 million Denvers made. Look at the vintage figures for O mint, seeded Liberty halves, 49 million. That's it. That's the total number of coins struck, just over 49 million. It's just shy of 50 million coins struck at the New Orleans Mint. However, most were hoarded. Many, actually even more, were destroyed. These are 90% silver. They were melted for silver. So how do we know what is out there? We check NGC, PCGS. We look at the population reports and the census reports to give us an idea of how many they've seen. Because if somebody gets one, they send it in. Now, in all grades, for all seeded Liberty halves, let's just do all mints, population is only 108,000. But for New Orleans, the O mint population report, NGC and PCGS combined, less than 16,000. Less than 0.03%. That's why this is special. Finding an O mint, seeded Liberty half, especially in a collector grade like this, is like a needle in a haystack. Now, our competition has random dates, random mints, for $175 in similar condition. $85 more than us, and you get the rarer New Orleans mint. Guaranteed New Orleans mint. Join us, folks. This one is special. At least 175 years old, because the last one was struck in 1861. Only 15,000, 16,000 have been seen by NGC and PCGS since they started grading in the 80s. And we're at $89.95 while they last. I do have to put a 30-second clock up. I don't have many. I'm sorry that I don't have many. I wish I had more and we could spend a good 6, 7, 8 minutes on this, but you know how it is. We find as many as we can, and we're always hunting for those omens that qualify for our collector grade, and that's the other important part. Join us online. That's avccoins.com. Item number is 905-5100. rare New Orleans mint, 90% silver, seated Liberty halves. The $50 circulate prior to the barber. Join us.